This is breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Renee Summerhour with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We're getting ready to take you live to Mount Charleston for another update on the fire that broke out overnight at the lodge there at Mount Charleston. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Up here to do an operation on the roof. Our plan is to bring an excavator up here with the assistance of Public Works. We're going to start peeling back the roof structure, which is the primary hazard for firefighters right now because it has collapsed in on the building. So we're going to peel that back and then probably use the aerial or the truck company to get above the structure and extinguish any fires that we can see from that vantage point. So that's our current operation. In addition to the investigation is currently underway. We believe we have the origin isolated to a specific area in the vicinity of the dining room, but cause is yet to be determined, and it will probably be quite some time. They're in the process of doing what we call digging out the fire. That's where they remove all the debris from on top of where it probably started so they can identify exactly what the source was, if possible. That's where we are with the current operation.
Are firefighters right now able to take all the items out of the building, like you said, even with the hazard that the roof is unstable?
We're not doing that in the majority of the building. We've been able to do that in where we think the origin is because whatever roof structure was on it completely burned off, which is kind of what gives us an idea of where it started, where the most damage is, where it burned the longest and the hottest. That's where we start our focus, and we think we have that identified, and there's no roof structure on top. It all burned off. So they were able to pull whatever fell in, pull that out, and now they have basically open sky above their heads. So it's a safe investigation.
And we're still talking about the dining room vicinity area.
I'm going to say the vicinity of the dining area, where it was originally as crews arrived on scene. Again, Mount Charleston Fire Protection District crews were first to arrive on scene, and they reported heavy fire in the vicinity of the dining area.
Can you talk about the weather? The light rain, is it making a difference at all, or are you guys expecting heavier rain?
Currently, the rain is not having an impact. If it was heavier rain and if it was earlier in the incident, that would assist us with any embers, that were going up into the sky and possibly falling on either, the dry timber up here or people's homes. But earlier this morning, the weather was more clear and sunny when the fire started. And so currently with this light drizzle, it's not having an impact one way or the other.
Can you talk about how important it was to get on this fire early and the dangers that came with this, and who should be credited for keeping it to this one structure?
Honestly, it was a joint effort. I'll say again that the City of Las Vegas Fire Department, because of their vicinity in the Las Vegas Valley, they cover the majority of the Northwest, where Clark County units cover the majority of the south end of town and east ends of town. The city units were primarily here first. We did have Mount Charleston Fire Protection District who launched an early attack to put water on the fire and try to keep it from growing as best they could. But a fire like this really requires a lot of resources, and we have what's called automatic aid agreements where we all help each other out automatically. So when a call comes in, our central dispatch center just sends whatever the closest resources are. And for this particular incident, the majority of those resources were the City of Las Vegas.
Could have been worse though with up here in this terrain.
Absolutely. If we didn't get water on the fire, I think it's very likely that it could have spread to some of these adjacent lodges, and you can see all the adjacent lodges around here have pine trees, and it only takes one pine tree for another pine tree and then another, and pretty soon we could have potentially had, a large forest fire.
Can you talk about how quickly, going off of that a bit, how quickly it could just take to tear this whole area down? How many minutes would it, if they didn't arrive right away, what would that timeline look like before all of this was going on?
the progression of a fire inside of a structure varies depending on the structure type. This particular structure is not, the majority of it is what we call heavy timber construction, a lodge. So it's old pine, logs, etc., stacked on top of each other. Those don't burn as fast as a typical, what we call a lightweight structure, that like our homes in Las Vegas. So they don't burn as fast, but they do put off a lot of radiant heat. And all the structures around it are pretty much log homes and log structures. So they're not as susceptible to radiant heat as a lightweight structure, but the pine trees are. The pine trees are very susceptible, and I expect there was a lot of pine tree clearing around the lodge, as is required generally. Make sure you keep your pine trees away from the homes so it doesn't, any house fire doesn't spread to the pine trees, and vice versa. Pine tree fires don't spread to the houses. Again, this was a great effort by all parties involved, all departments that responded. We always work well together, and this is another example of where we were able to get up here quickly, respond from town, get up here quickly, and keep this fire from extending.
Have you had an opportunity to talk with the owners?
I have not, but we are in contact with the property owners.
When you saw the fire, was there any concern from you about being able to get all the trucks up here with the elevation, the weather, the winding roads? Any of that caused a concern for you during the timeline of putting it out?
The answer to that is no, and the reason is because we have a close relationship with the departments that are up here, not only the Mount Charleston Fire Protection District, but also the U.S. Forest Service. So this isn't our first time coming up here. And here we have the City of Las Vegas truck company that's departing and heading back to Vegas.
No injuries, right?
There have been no injuries. We still have not been able to search the interior of the structure for potential victims or fatalities. We have very low degree of suspicion that there was ever anybody in there. There's no reported persons lost.
The time of year, from September, would have been different if it was winter, if it was snow or something. Like, how does the season affect this fire?
Well, I think what would have made this more challenging for us is if the roads were wet and icy. Then we have a high degree of concern for fire trucks coming from Las Vegas who aren't equipped, to drive on icy roads, because that's not necessarily what we do on a regular basis. So our response would have maybe been a little bit delayed, but more than likely, if there was snow piled on all these trees, that would have lowered our concern for, extension into the forest. And also adjacent homes, if their rooftops are covered in snow, that lessens the degree of concern for fire extension.
Are you willing to speculate at all on potential causes, like, what's on the table?
I can't speculate because there's so many different, possibilities. It could be electrical. It could be a cooking thing. It could be arson. It could be a lot of things, so it's really impossible to speculate, and it's not fair to do so.
How much longer do you think the road will stay closed? A few more hours or throughout the rest of the day?
No, I think that it'll probably be an hour or two more, I would assume, because we have the majority of our resources out that we don't need, and the majority of the resources that we do need are in. I guess probably our biggest concern, I'm pretty sure they're letting homeowners pass both directions. Our biggest concern is we don't need people coming up here and jamming up the roads just to see what happened. And so we may continue just blocking people from coming up here for recreational purposes for quite some time.
Thank you.
What do you think, timeline-wise, when do you think you can find out what the cause is, like the timeline? Do you think it'll be like a week, a month?
It's really hard to say. I would guess a few days. A few days before we know, and it will be probably longer before we release that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Is there going to be a possible update again?
Yes. I could do an update at noon and at 1, if that's what you all decide.
Well, you just heard an update about the fire that has burned down the lodge at Mount Charleston. As what we know so far, according to police or fire officials, is that they may have determined an origin for the fire, but still yet have not determined an actual cause. And they say that might be a few days or longer before they're actually able to release any information about the actual cause. They're also saying that they have no doubt that no one was actually inside during the time of the fire and can't speculate what might be the cause. They say it could be anything from electrical to arson, and that information will not again be available until they're able to investigate everything themselves. Now again, this is a developing story. You can get all the information you need in the latest on our website, lvrj.com, and we will have an update on all of today's events for you this evening at 7 p.m. Remember, you can also download our free RJ mobile app to get breaking news alerts just like this sent straight to your phone. And as always, you can find us on Roku, Apple TV, YouTube, and your other favorite digital platforms. I'm Renee Summerhour. Thank you for watching.
You've been watching breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.